Well, hi, I'm Euge. I'm an experienced designer at Manvetom. Our main target of today is how to make user-friendly payments. And we're going to introduce Paymail to you. And you're wondering what is Paymail? We're going to get there, I promise. So all these attractive technologies, blockchain went through a process of exploration in different group of users. And from the early enthusiasts to today, iterations of use were framed in different contexts, creating real applications that were not initially imagined. That means that it creates real value for real people. How can we project on a global scale blockchain to be approachable for everybody? Well, our thought is by improving user experience, starting with Paymail. So we split our talk in two main moments. One is the problem, and the other one, of course, the solution. And in this problem, we're going to try to explain what is wrong with user payment experience today. We're going to do some insights on user experience. I hope you find it interesting. And we're going to explain why we build Paymail and how we build Paymail for an end-user, non-technical perspective. For that, we pop up three main categories. They are all focused on a known user process. And we start with know your users. I'm going to quote a phrase and show two examples that explain why being right, why being first, and why being the best in technology isn't always enough. So you would need an engineer degree from MIT to set this microwave. This is a quote from a book called The Psychology of Everyday Things by Don Norman. I really recommend you to read it. And originally it says digital watch, but then I guess that the implications were actually matched with any electrical device. And it means that we cannot build technology from only MIT engineers. And we cannot build technology for people who read the entire manual. We have to build technology for all people. In 1975, Edison invented, oh wait, I'm gonna just play around a little bit, but I'll be back, swear. So in 1975, Edison invented the phonograph. It was a really simple device to play and record audio. It was a pioneer in this engineer. It works with a cylinder, but he never thought of real application for it. Owners of the early machine held parties and played to record and play music, and this eventually became his initially use. 5 years later, Emil Bernina created the gramophone. It was a special device designed to play music. It works with a disc that sounds pretty familiar, right? And totally beats record sales. So funny fact was that Edison studied both, the cylinder and the disc. But in every decision he made, technology prevails. And the cylinder was superior, but not for users. They prefer discs. They were less fragile. They're better for storage and shape. They could play longer music just by increasing their sizes. You got both sides for less money, and they were really easy to mass produce. In 1913, Edison realized the error and changed the cylinder for disc. But the device played this differently, and these were interoperable, and custom prevails. The gramophone became real popular, and Edison was screwed. 100 years later, in 2013, Axel introduced the Xbox One. These are some of the issues that went wrong, but the principal thing was that whenever a gamer bought a game and installed it on their consoles, an authentication code matched the game with that console only, and did not allow users to share the game. They hindered the experience and then create a problem that didn't exist before. So in order to fix the relationship with angry users, they create a 10-minute shitty tutorial to explain how they hack their own security to allow users to share the game. And his competitor, that was PlayStation 4, created their own tutorial to explain their own users how to share PlayStation games, and this is what they did.
This is how you share your games on PS4.
So now you know. Best technology doesn't mean commercial success. You need adoption to succeed. You know, to know your users and you try to fill their needs. And for adoption, you need consent. Well, blockchain doesn't always reach for consent. And we're gonna try to explain that with addresses. So this is how normal people perceive a human profile online. And we all know that this data and this image doesn't embrace human complexity. But we get consensus on how we display formats and information. So we get ID numbers, we got bank accounts, and we got addresses. And the address has a predetermined format that helps us match it with the real life place. But when Mr. Burns goes to blockchain and we gave him an address, this is what he gets. And this, and this, and all of them. So it does not agree with previous consensus that users are used to see when they find address meanings. And when we explain it what it is and how they can use it for and why they should use it, we tell them, okay, now we're gonna give you a new one every time you wanna make a transaction. Make it impossible for final users to associate it with pre-established payments, like for example, an online banking. And it's really easy to ask them to move forward when we understand it, but adoption is not reached by talking to those who already understand it, which brings us to our second category. There is companies should only talk to their current users. They should talk to those who are not yet. So how companies talk to new users through technology? Well, they have to have in consideration that humans are intrinsically analog and not digital, biological and not mechanical. So how does mechanicals talk biologically? Well, communications change over time on the technology's life cycles. Maybe this is a new introduction for you, but technologies does have life cycles. And as it grows, they get new characteristics and new applications, but they get new users, starting with early adopters. Early adopters are technology enthusiasts. They focus on the product and their implementations. They'll help technology to grow and to get acceptable. Good, I said that word right, good. And to get acceptable. So at the early days of the technology, engineers rules. And that's why on the early days of transactions, people send money like this.
That is like a script to send money. Basically, you have to write everything by hand. You have to ask a CLI to actually create the transaction, then sign the transaction, and then broadcast the transaction to the node, everything by hand. Of course, probably, I know that there is a lot of people in this room that is able to do that, but it's not comfortable at all.
Right, but for sending money, that's not exactly a piece of cake. But we move forward. We understood that not everybody can write a script to send money. And that's where investment pushers came up. These are people who not entirely understand technology, but they create real applications for it, and they create business around it. And they have real needs and ask for real features, and they push boundaries of the technology forward. And we realize that, and these are our current users do transactions today. But how we speak to new users, the later adopters. These are people who wait for the technology to mature, to show value to itself and them. This is when the technology becomes a tool. And at this point, technology can be taken for granted. And usability and convenience are imposed on the technological. So these are the most difficult these are the most difficult users to actually communicate with. And they don't want to wait to reach their goals to actually understand the technology. They want to stop their lives. These are people who just want to go on with their life, and they are the bulk of the market. They are the majority. They fast outnumber later adopters and investors and pushers. Sorry, I totally forgot what I was going to say. Right, so we communicate by listening. We create human-centered technology that helps them improve their lives and empower it. And we do that by, sorry, next slide. Oh, right. And we do that by creating technology that is not there, that's under the hood, and they'll help them to reach their goals without actually had to realize they're interacting with new technology. That means creating value for humans through technology and not value for technology through humans. And that means that best interface is not interface at all. So technology is under the hood, but main goal is always there. Take the task to the tool and not the tool to the task. And you get that with adoption, functionality, proper visibility, great feedback, but you get that by the concrete creation of conceptual models. And conceptual models are images that users create themselves that explain how they use it and what they use it for. And they're based on three main topics that are, well, they show main actions and they explain themselves on their own topography. They show principal functions and they show how people interact with them. And they gave great feedback because people had to validate their own actions. But most importantly, conceptual models are framed in cultural patterns and context. And to explain that, this is a cuter version of Escher stairs. It's cuter because at the end of the day, I'm still a designer, or whatever. So the focus, the principal goal of stairs is pretty simple. They take people from A to point B. They explain themselves topographically because, steps are one above the other and they're really near to the floor. And main functionality is simple and it's there. But in this case, the goal is totally lost and people get frustrated. They never reach their destination. They get mad, they get confused, and they stop using the tool. Which means that the moment that the tool doesn't reach a goal, it's not longer a usable tool. And this is how a technical user perceives a conceptual model of the transaction. We got all the technical backlog, we got all the details, but these are a non-technical user perceive transactions on their own conceptual models. And that's okay, because we don't have to actually ask them to know the technical below it to send money to each other, right? I drive a car, I don't know anything about cars, I work close, I don't make it. And taking that in consideration, trying to know users' needs and fulfill them, we go all the way from scripts to random numbers and keywords to Paymail. This is the second moment of the presentation, the solution to improve that experience. So we want to show you how Paymail works.
And that's it.